Like Diane Wilson, Riki was a commercial fisherman much of her life to seeking justice for everyday people, their livelihoods, and the environment. She was 13 when she read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which inspired her to become a marine biologist and eventually to share science by writing books for the general public to better understand our natural world. Intending to make her living in commercial fishing, Riki went to Alaska, where she fell in love with its people and its landscape. However, 4 years later, in 1989, the Exxon Valdez spilled millions of gallons of oil into Prince William Sound, devastating the local economy, communities, and thousands of miles of fragile environment. A trained marine toxicologist and author, Riki has written 2 books, Sound Truth and Corporate Myths, and Not One Drop. Both of these are on the impact of the oil spill on the people and the communities of Prince William Sound. And Riki also starred in Black Wave, an award-winning feature film. In 2010, Riki brought her expertise to the Gulf of Mexico, volunteering 5 months of her time to exposing public health problems, BP's cover-up attempts, and helping to empower local residents to take action. She co-founded Ultimate Civics, a project of the Earth Island Institute and a member of the national grassroots coalition MoveToAmend.org. Riki is now calling to amend the Constitution to abolish corporate personhood. And in October, Riki received Huffington Post's Game Changer 2010 award. Please welcome Riki Ott.
There we go. I have been down in the Gulf 5 of the past 6 months. I don't need my head examined, okay? We nationally need our head examined. The reason I went down, I waited 2 weeks. Actually, I hid from the media. I didn't want to go through this again. I'd been through it in 1989 with the Exxon Valdez. I've been through this for the past 21 years, the lies, the cover-up. This is what I flew over on March 24th, 1989. That tanker is aground in 60 feet of water. It's 3 football fields long. And when I flew over the fishing ground, I remember this question popped in my head. What can one person do? This is a huge mess. And then I realized I know enough to make a difference. Do I care enough? And when I answered that question, yes, that decision has been driving my life for the past 22 years now, 21 years. So, I'm going to come back to that because I think this is a question we need to be asking ourselves now, each of us. But the lies. The Exxon Valdez did not spill 11 million gallons. It was closer to 33 million gallons. It is not all over and everything's back to normal in Prince William Sound. In fact, in 1993, 4 years after the Exxon Valdez, when the young of the year failed to materialize because of their oil bath, the entire ecosystem collapsed. When the herring have still not recovered. And because there's so much that feeds on herring, the rest of the ecosystem has not recovered either. These are stories that you haven't really been told. This is what's left on our beaches now in Prince William Sound. If I take high school students out and we dig a pit about 1.5 feet, pour a bucket of seawater in, the surrounding beach rock is so porous and so saturated with oil that the oil flows down into the pit and up. This is 17 years after the Exxon Valdez. The scientists say it will be at least 50 before the oil disappears from our beaches. Not only have I been dealing with the collapsed ecosystem, but also with the workers. It turns out the oil does cause long-term effects, and the cleanup that happened, well, euphemistically called cleanup, was these high-pressure hoses that bounced the oil off the rocks into the air, and people breathed it. So what you see on their rain gear is what's in their lungs. I have literally been dealing for 21 years with sick, disabled, and dying people that were shoved under the carpet from Exxon Valdez. So, science advanced, the medical field advanced. 21 years later, there's a whole new field of medicine called environmental medicine that deals with low levels of chemical pollutants in our environment and what that does to people's health. And it turned out that the oil that made the wildlife sick and delayed recovery in Prince William Sound is the same compounds that made the cleanup workers sick, are the same compounds that are coming out of the automobiles of our cars and stealing the breath of our children, so that in our urban cities, where our federal policies say the air is safe to breathe, it turns out it's not. And it costs our children 1% of their lung capacity for every 1 year of their life. 10 years old, 10% of their lung capacity. We know this now. And no policies have shifted in 21 years to better protect worker safety, to better protect public health, or better protect the environment. None. So, we learned a lot with the Exxon Valdez, and one of the things was the lies. We will make you whole. We were dumb enough to believe Exxon. And the people of the Gulf are being told now by BP, we will make you whole. And I realized that all of our learning in Alaska could actually maybe prevent the people of the Gulf from making some of the mistakes we made in Alaska. So before I lost my nerve, I booked a one-way ticket on May 3rd and flew down to the Gulf without knowing a soul. But I do know the story. And the story is there's always two stories. One is the official story. It's not that bad. Everything will recover fast. It's all over. And the other is what's really going on. And to have the official story come out, there's a number of things that it has to control. It has to control the imagery and the story. And the imagery is how much really spilled, how much damages actually were there, how many dead things were there. Those dead things, those dead dolphins, whales, sea turtles, seabirds, they're owned by every single one of us. If I asked one of you what you owned, you would think, well, the clothes that I have on, my computer, my home if you're older. But really, you own a piece of every national park in America, every national forest. This is our land. These are our dolphins. So, damages, the environment. You guys, claps don't count against my time, okay? Okay, how bad is the environment? I mean, how bad really is the environment? The air quality, the water quality, what came ashore? People's health. This is something we didn't really have to deal with Exxon Valdez because all of our beaches, a lot of them were very, very remote. And finally, the economy. God save the economy, right? So I'm going to share with you now the unofficial story. These are images that you have not seen. This was gifted to me by a very sick vessel of opportunity worker, and I've been helping him understand what happened to him. This is out at the source, the in situ burn team, where the fishermen were using fire boom to corral oil and then torching it. And the thing here is they were not given respirators. When we raised money and gave them respirators, BP told the workers that if they wore those respirators, their jobs would be terminated. And that is BP's line for the whole summer of work. Workers, fishermen, spill responders never got respirators. At the same time, there were 5 oil rigs in the nearby area where the oilmen had respirators, and even with respirators, they still had headaches, they still had sore throats, and they were pulled off the rigs. The 5 rigs were temporarily closed down, and the news stories came out because of danger of burn. What the oilmen were telling me was no, they were closed down because they were getting sick. But the fishermen, no respirators. So what do you think's happened to all those fishermen now? Incredibly sick, okay?
As we headed out
dead
toward
things.
Louisiana,
Death gyres.
it was mile after mile of rainbow, heavy, heavy, slick oil, and then a circle appeared. Could there possibly be life under all of this? In the shadow of all that smoke, could there actually be something alive? We made one more pass around ground zero and found this. There was movement in the oil. As we looked closer, we saw this pod of dolphins, obviously struggling just to breathe. Then we found this guy. A sperm whale swimming in the oil had just breached. Along his back, we could see red patches of crude as if he'd been basted for broiling. Then there was this pod of dolphins found later, some already dead, some in their death throes. It seemed to be that they were raising their heads and looking at the fires, wondering, why is my world burning down around me? Why would humans do this to me?
I think if more images had gotten out like this to the national press, we would have had the same level of outrage that we had after 1969, Santa Barbara, when the national public rose with and yelled with one voice, we want better environmental protection now. And law after law after law, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, National Environmental Policy Act, and more were passed as a result under the Reagan administration because the public spoke as one. And that is why I think images like this were absolutely squashed. I heard reports from fishermen of dolphins too numerous to count dead in these death gyres, and turtles and birds. And that footage was actually taken not by national media, who never used their First Amendment right, but by Hurricane Creek Keeper, one of the Waterkeeper Alliance, who pushed the limit with his First Amendment rights. Now, part of the reason here that things actually went worse than what we've heard on the news is that booms, burning, and dispersants were used 21 years ago with Exxon Valdez. They didn't work then, and they're not working now. In the lower right-hand, why would we expect them to work 21 years later? In the lower right-hand corner, you see a double layer of boom, and you see the oil is actually on the wrong side of the boom, and the boom is actually pinning the oil against the marsh that it's supposed to be protecting. So the oil did come ashore, and when the oil came ashore, dispersants were used heavily in inshore and nearshore waters, much to the detriment of people's health. And this is another story you weren't told. I took these pictures on exactly the same day. For this picture, I just turned this way up the beach, and here you see the booties taped around the pants leg. And I asked the workers why. These are hazardous waste workers. They said, oh, ma'am, the ocean is contaminated. We can't get any on us. And I turned this way and took these pictures because there were 5 federal agencies out sampling air, water, and air quality and water quality, and they couldn't find anything wrong with the air quality or the water quality. And so they said it was fine. And so the city officials said, come on down, come swimming, the beaches are open, the casinos are open. There are, I believe, 4 to 5 million people along the Gulf who were exposed to dangerous levels of oil and are going to have severe health effects over these next probably couple decades. Let me share with you what I'm seeing. And this is, I've heard these health problem symptoms as early as May and stretching all the way to when I left 2 weeks ago. Now I'm doing a health survey in the Gulf, and things like headaches, dizziness, nausea, brain fog, lethargy, those are central nervous system effects. I mean, we know oil causes this. We know oil causes respiratory damage, and we know oil causes skin rashes. This is what some of this looks like. It's being, and visitors and residents alike, it's being diagnosed, the skin rashes are being diagnosed as scabies or staph infections like MRSA. Let me see if I have, nope. Real scabies, I'll show you a picture of that in my workshop this afternoon. It doesn't look anything like this. Something else is going on. This is chemical illnesses. The Gulf is woefully unprepared to deal with this. And when people asked me, you know, I went into community after community and said, don't make the mistake we did. We believed Exxon when they said, we will make you whole. What's your plan B? And people said, whoa, well, you know, we can smell burning crayons in the air. How can EPA find no problem? And I said, well, do you believe EPA? No. Well, what do? get your own air quality samples, your own water quality samples, and that's what people did across the Gulf. And so then when people started getting sick, they said, what do we do now? And I said, get your blood sampled. And people did. Upper 95th percentile of oil in their blood. Yeah. And I'm talking, yesterday I talked to a grandmother who has a 2-year-old son who's on his 2 years old. He's on his 3rd round of antibiotics for a cough that won't go away. And that is what I'm hearing now across the Gulf. 3rd and 4th round of antibiotics for a biological infection when I think the underlying base is chemical.
A report out today by our scientists show that the vast majority of the spilled oil has been dispersed or removed from the water. So the long battle to stop the leak and contain the oil is finally close to coming to an end.
The good news is that the vast majority of the oil appears to be gone.
The vast majority of the oil has either evaporated or been burned, skimmed, or dispersed.
5 million barrels that went into the water as a result of this spill. There's still a quarter of it out in the water.
That quarter will weather, it will break down naturally. Mother Nature will do her part.
Mother Nature is helping assist the federal effort.
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature is assisting.
Is it safe to say that it appears to be working well, but we don't know what the long-term consequences are of the chemicals that were put in to disperse the oil?
I think that what we do know is important. One, that the dispersants did work.
We already had some seafood in the White House when the New Orleans Saints came up. We had a couple of po' boys. So right now we're feeling pretty good.
That's the official story. If you want to help change it, come to the workshop this afternoon. What I saw with Exxon Valdez is after the oil spill, there was money, a giant money spill that covered it up. What we see in the Gulf is more oil and more money. There is a way to change this endgame. Right now, it's all been shut down because of the midterm election. And I think there's too many sick people and too many documentary film crews to let this story sink like the Exxon Valdez did. But this is not about, just fixing a rig, a drilling rigs, and doing it a little bit better. This is actually about getting off oil and getting off coal. This is also about taking back the power of the pen. Our democracy has been hijacked. If you want to learn more about the Gulf disaster, what students can do, and you're not planning on coming to the workshop, please visit rikiott.com, which will take you to ultimatecivics.org. And also sign up and join Move to Amend. That's the movement where corporations are not persons, money is not speech. And I hope to see you at the workshop this afternoon.